Mandatory. Listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're back again with another episode of Mandatory Listening. What episode is it, Dan?
Episode 9.
Yeah, we're giving it to the people.
Right.
People. Let's get straight into it. What are we talking about this week?
Let's get straight into it. We were talking about Sly and the Family Stone.
Sly? And
their 5th studio album.
Why do I ad-lib? Why do I always ad-lib the intros like I'm Amigos? Like I'm Amigo.
Yeah.
No, Quavo's not doing yeah. Don't disrespect Quavo. Don't disrespect Takeoff.
Yeah, I don't have much knowledge of Migos.
All you gotta do is just whatever you say it again. You know what I'm saying?
Cool. Right.
Something like that. Man,
we're talking about
feels white. We gotta do that again.
Oh my gosh.
We gotta start over.
Now we should do the whole podcast in Spanish. We're starting from the beginning.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're back with another episode of Mandatory Listening. What episode is it? I gotta figure out a way to get the. All right, here we go. 4th time's a charm. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we're back again with Mandatory Listening episode
9. Episode 9.
I feel like they're slowing down. I felt like we were going right through. Now we're just. No. See, that's the thing. Like, we're talking about the episode again. Why do we got to talk about episode numbers? Why do I got to do that? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're back again with Mandatory Listening, episode number
9.
Episode number 9. You know, I want to get straight to it. I don't want to get any little talk.
Let's get straight to it.
Straight to it. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about Sly and the Family Stone.
Yep.
And their 5th album, 1971.
Yep.
There's a riot going on. Wow.
Just think about, like, just funk.
Just deep, dark dungeon funk. Like,
yeah, exactly. I like it. Get straight into it. Don't even we're not even gonna play around with them today.
It was released on November 20th.
Yes,
1971.
Yep.
It was a number 1 pop album hit. Which,
of course, who else?
Yeah, I mean So I was like, okay, like I know that they had some big success like before this album.
Yep.
But this album is maybe not what you would consider like, okay, I could see that being a number 1 album. You know, like it's not like the Whitney Houston album was like, okay, that was made for the charts, you know.
Yeah, even Shaka Khan, I don't know if that was the number 1, but like albums
close,
like
probably.
that, Prince 1999, Songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah.
Like we hear them and like, number 1 right there. Yep. But you're telling me that this is not that, Dan? That's my NPR voice. You're telling me that this is not the same?
I'll work on my NPR voice. Then we'll have a whole NPR segment. Yeah.
Next episode, we're talking about Rose McGowan and her return to the silver screen.
We'll be interviewing Charlie Chaplin. And it's like, what? I thought he was dead.
We'll be
reviewing the Magna Carta.
We'll be taking a look at the Constitution of the United States.
And a live Zoom call from George Washington. All right. So
stay right there for morning coffee.
So let me ask you a question, Aaron.
Yep. I like it. Ask me a question. I like this.
What did you know about this album going into it?
You know what's funny? I knew just the album cover.
Yeah. Iconic cover.
Yeah, and I mean I knew some 1-2 songs on it, but I didn't know I knew the songs on it. So I don't know if that counts. You know, I knew the song, but I didn't know 3 songs. We could talk more about that later. Well, I'll tell you now. I knew just like I know juice. I knew just like a baby. Just like a baby. I also
that was it. You have your keyboard there with you?
I do, but I told myself like, all right, we're going to refrain from the keyboard for a couple episodes. You know, I've been giving them the keyboard too much. You know, putting too much sauce.
Yeah,
on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other song that I knew was what's the popular one? Don't tell me. It's a family affair. I knew that song. And I knew the song I wanna thank you for letting me be myself. Although it's not the same one. Definitely not the same song.
But it pretty much, I mean, it's like a reinterpretation of it. Like,
yes, the first remix ever.
I obviously realized, like, oh, thank you for like that part of the title. I was like, oh, that's awfully close to thank you.
Yeah. You know, well, I thought that was it. I thought that was a song when I just looked at the track list the first time.
Yeah. So I figured it would be a completely different song, and it really wasn't. But
sadly, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say sadly, because I mean, I got to jump into the world this week, but I didn't really know that much about Sly the Family Stone. I had this actually I had this, what do they call it? Compilation album, something like that, like a greatest hits.
Oh, greatest hits, yeah.
Greatest hits of Sly Stone.
Yeah.
And I listen to that all the time. That's probably how I know Just Like a Baby and the ones that I just told you. You know what I mean? Besides
here's the interesting thing about that is the album that directly preceded this album was a greatest hits compilation. That they put together after their first 4 albums. And it was, a little bit because there was some time where Clive Davis thought they were going to put out their 5th album, and they still weren't. And it really wasn't that long, but just back then it was like 2 whole years. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, back then, I mean, people were putting albums out. Like, they put out 3 albums in 1 year. Their first 3 albums were all in the same year. So,
that's true.
And the difference was that, this, we're jumping right into the context, but the difference was they had like really good success. So it was like, all right, time to follow up now. We got it, like, while it's hot, hit it,
Right.
But that album is a compilation album, and it's exactly because of that, because Sly was basically just like, I'm good. I'm not, don't worry about it, Clive. You just chill.
So the thing, like, the only real song that I knew off this album beforehand was Family Affair.
Before you get to that. Oh, okay. Go ahead. You're about to say that.
Yeah. The only song I knew off of this album beforehand was Family Affair. And then once I listened to it, I was like, oh, okay. So I also know Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself. But just from the jump, it was like, okay, Family Affair, that's about it. I knew the album cover.
I knew the album cover in those songs, which I don't know how I know the album cover. I mean, I know it's kind of iconic, but I don't know where I saw it, unless just looking through like Rolling Stones, you know what I'm saying, albums. I think I did that a couple of times.
I have a great quote. I don't know if you saw this. I have a great quote about the album cover.
Okay.
That Sly was talking about it. So he was being interviewed, and he was talking about like the different colors of the album cover and what they represented to him. But my favorite part of the quote was he said, "I wanted suns instead of stars because stars to me imply searching, like you search for your star. And there are already too many stars in this world. But the sun, that's something that is always there, looking right at you. Betsy Ross did the best she could with what she had. I thought I could do better." I was like, man, that is, if that's not confidence, I don't know. Like, nobody's ever gone at Betsy Ross, I don't think. I'm not sure about that, but
wait, she's the one who like created the flag. Like,
she like
sewed the flag, right?
Yeah, she's like the sweet little like grandma, like sewing the flag, like.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like there's some history behind that I don't know about.
Probably. She was probably like super racist, and
I mean, if she had anything to do with the person who wrote the song, Star Spangled Banner.
That's true. Yeah, she probably didn't, but she probably was super racist. It was the 1700s.
Well, it was just we all have vestiges of white supremacy in us even today, so I'm sure she did too.
Vestiges. Wow.
Yeah. I'm trying to step up the vocabulary of mandatory listening.
That'd be funny if you like couldn't remember the word vocab. I'm trying to step up my.
Let me look that up.
All right, so let's get to the hook of the album.
Let's do it. You know what's funny? Every time we get to the hook of this, every, every time we get to the hook part of our episode, I'm like, didn't think of a hook.
I know, yeah, it's so hard.
But I'm gonna say I'm gonna make this. Oh, this is gonna be great. This hook is called "Stuck in Bed."
Stuck in Bed. Okay, explain further. I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, no, I think that this album was very representative of Sly not only being physically in bed, because he wanted to, but also kind of like stuck in this, sleep state. I'm really going for this sleep state that the PCP and the cocaine kind of had him in, to where he was just stuck. Like he didn't like being a celebrity. He didn't want to be out there, but he also still wanted to make music, and so he was just kind of like in between. I'm gonna kill this. He was in between being asleep and getting up.
Man, halfway out of bed. Maybe is that the
halfway out of bed? Yeah, he was halfway out of bed.
I'm gonna piggyback on that one because I think that's such a good one. Like I
just made it up just now.
Amazing. You have a gift. I peaked with my hook making abilities on episode 2.
That was a great hook.
Stevie Wonder.
Don't even tell them.
No, I won't even tell them. Go back and watch episode 2. Stevie Wonder, Songs that Give Life. But ever since then, it's been like, how do I come up with the hook? I'm not even good. I wrote one down, but I'm going to go with halfway out of bed, stuck in bed. That'll be a joint hook from the two of us. I really like that.
Yeah, joint hook.
Joint hook. First ever joint hook.
You get 40%. I get 40%.
Oh, you get like 60. It's like 60-40 because you
we'll
came
make
up
it 60-40, right?
I mean, maybe even like 70-30.
The whites stole so much black music in the history.
Man, coming hard today. Wow. Goodness. I just got up today. It was a beautiful day. Aaron's like, great job on that white supremacy, Daniel.
Has nothing to do with you. It just has everything to do with your aunts and uncles. I'm just joking.
Oh my Lord. All right.
Sorry. I was just watching a bunch of James Baldwin yesterday, and I was like, yeah, James, I feel you.
James Baldwin. All right, let's want to get to some context, kind of some history. So, as you know very well, Aaron, when we met in freshman year of college.
Oh, you got a story?
Well, I'm just kind of setting it up. So,
okay.
Freshman year of college, I went through a Sly phase, and I started from the beginning. Sly and the Family Stone, first album, and that was in 1967.
Yep. That was in 2014.
Right. We are not that old. But the album, A Whole New Thing, is from 1967, their debut album. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start from the beginning. I don't know if you probably don't remember. I don't remember why I decided that, why that artist, why to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
But but the first song on the first album is Underdog. And I remember I just remember being like, what is this? Like, and it was like, and this is something that I'll probably say again before the episode ends, but I think that part of the appeal of it to me was that, I mean, I could get pretty sappy with like the whole, like, there were white people and black people in the band, and it was the 60s, and it was like, that was a real, and there was men and women, and it was this almost like, people have said almost utopian like situation at first. Not to be too sappy about it, but like the way that influences the music, like people just any band, like even if it's 4 straight white dudes, like you all bring in different influences musically to the band. So
and then like there were other bands that were interracial, like even Rufus, when it first started out, it was like white guys with a black singer, like black female singer, and that was like a thing for a while.
Yeah.
Where, but that was kind of stereotypical and cliche. I don't know if it was necessarily bad, but this was in a different Sly and the Family Stone was different because they weren't just like, oh, we got some horn players and you got this singer. It's like, no, everybody was equal on stage. Even when you watch them perform, like when you look at them and they're perform, there's no like person in the front, person in the back. They're all just kind of there.
Okay.
And Sly did that on purpose. He was like, I don't want it to seem like anybody's more important than the other, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, we're all just everyday people.
Yeah. There you go. Nice. So yeah,
you can't take it seriously. You gotta laugh at it so people won't think it's corny.
Well, I couldn't laugh because it wasn't funny, but that's why I said.
Gotcha. No, I really appreciate the teamwork. Yeah.
So speaking of teamwork, I think that when I was a freshman in college, I wasn't necessarily thinking like, oh man, this is like the main reason why I like this band. You know, I mean, it was purely just like the songs were good, and I liked the rhythm section. Larry Graham on bass, like he was one of the first people that I really started noticing the bass in the song. And that led to me like sophomore year, junior year, somewhere in there, like getting a bass and like trying to play a little bit on my own.
Yeah, you did.
The first time that I ever heard any of their songs was "If You Want Me to Stay," off of Fresh, which is the album after this one. I heard that one in high school, and that one actually wasn't Larry Graham. I was shocked to find that out.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
That was Rusty Allen.
But anyway. Now knowing what I know about Larry's relationship with them now, like with his album, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you like high school, college a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting, into them at different times. But yeah, like I basically had my binge phase with them lasted 4 albums.
Yeah.
And that led up to the one we're talking about today. I never got around to listening to There's a Riot Going On. I don't remember why I stopped there. It was like when I watched Breaking Bad, I stopped at season 4 and I never finished it, Like, I don't know why.
The cool thing is you covered kind of like, we didn't give the details about how, they came up and all that stuff, but that's for another time, because I'm sure we're going to come back to that. The album was the one that came out in 1969. I'm sure we'll come back to that at some time. But I think it is cool to mention that Sly grew up in Oakland. Really, it's like a city around Oakland. It starts with a V, right? Like Vallejo. Vallejo. So he grew up there. He was always like, there was a lot of kids in his family, or at least more than him.
Well, it kind of like they talk about like the youngest 4 were all in the band at one point or another. Him, Rose, Freddie, and Vet. And Vet was a part of Little Sister, who was like the background vocal kind of trio.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were all like the youngest siblings, but I don't actually clearly there are older siblings. I don't know who they are.
Yeah, who knows? But I just know that when
there's probably like 20 of them.
I was watching something, and he was one of the sisters was like, Sly got more like whoopings than everybody else combined.
Wow.
He was like, he was always getting into trouble. He was always kind of like, doing his own thing. Kind of like, just wasn't good for, like, what I mean? His dad was sort of a disciplinarian, trying to like make him into something, that he was thinking. I don't know how to explain it. Those relationships are hard to talk about because who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, we weren't there.
Yeah, we weren't there. Yeah. But I will say that in his childhood, he was like super into playing instruments, like anything that he saw, like play bass, guitar, piano, drums, like that was his thing. And I didn't know he actually went to like music school, like music college school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know why that was surprising to me, but just back in my mind, I was like jazz college didn't really start till like the 90s in my head,
right?
Or the 80s,
Yeah. Just I think like music school outside of like classical music.
Yeah,
it really wasn't At least it wasn't popular.
Yeah.
Or
so
like common,
he didn't go to jazz school because jazz was like still really
happening.
But he went to like he learned how to arrange and how to play different instruments and things like that, which is really is really kind of you could tell by how the music that he writes, it doesn't sound like every other thing that was happening at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He was definitely like getting a lot of different influences from different places. Like with his family, like they were like, so their last name is Stewart. Their given last name is Stewart. Yeah. So they were like the Stewart Four, him and Freddie and Rose and Vet, and like they were singing like gospel music. Yeah. Like growing up, and then at one point in high school, he was in a doo-wop group, and then in the '60s, he was a radio DJ. Yeah. And he was like, it was an R&B station, KSOL in San Mateo, California. Mm-hmm. And this was in 1964, and so he was like playing R&B stuff, but he was also including like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and bands like that. Yeah. In his basically playlist of what he was playing. Right. So yeah, he was clearly taking inspiration from a lot of different kind of avenues of music. Which you can see once the band is formed, Yeah.
And did you say that he worked at a record label? Did you say that?
No, he was a DJ at a radio station.
Yeah, he was a DJ, and then in addition to that, like another experience was that he was like writing music or writing songs for like a record label, which is really kind of how he got started into like making his own music. Yeah, so he was just writing songs. Again, like one of the threads that we're noticing is like where people get their practice from, where people put their 10,000 hours in at, Yeah. So he got what what one of the documentaries said was that like he just got good at writing all types of songs. Yeah. So he's playing all types of music on the station, and he's learned a certain type of music in college. But now, when he's writing these songs as like a staff writer or whatever you would call it, he's writing very specific things for specific genres and things like that.
Yeah.
So
you're right. It was Autumn Records.
Yeah.
I missed that. Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. Now, do you know like what? I want to get off of this because I want to get to the mandatory listening. But do you know what like got him from like writing there to the like him doing his first deal? I think songs just kind of got around town, right?
Songs kind of got around town, and I know that he started a band and his brother Freddie did like at the same time, basically, or around the same time. Uh-huh. That was in '66. So he was a DJ in '64. 64, 66, somewhere in there is when he's writing the songs at the record label. So, I mean, it's funny because like when you think about like 2 or 3 years, I mean, it's a lot of time like when you're that age, but it's really not that much time, like it was all, he was doing a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then once the two bands started, his was Sly and the Stoners. And Freddie's was Freddie. Yeah, for real. Very on brand. Freddie's was Freddie and the Stone Souls.
What?
And yeah. I don't know that. I'm sure that they came to the Stone thing. Like, sure, they didn't come to that independently. Maybe they did, but it kind of seems like they would have talked about that since they were brothers and they were starting their own bands. But Cynthia Robinson, who played trumpet, she was like in Sly's band. They were kind of starting things, but then Freddie had Greg Errico on drums, and so basically they just decided at the suggestion of this saxophonist whose name could not be any better. If any of you have seen most or all of the episodes, it's very clear I just love names. Like this guy's name, he's a saxophonist. His name is Jerry Martini. I mean, wow. Like if you think like 60s saxophone, hey, Jerry Martini here, like, hey, it's Jerry Martini.
Like a sax player in the 60s on the West Coast, Jerry Martini.
I mean, anyway.
Shout out to Jerry, bro. You should come on the pod, bro. Friend of the pod. Friend of the pod, Jerry
if
Martini.
we had Jerry the Legend Martini on this pod, I would die. No, anyway, so
you don't think Jerry would zoom in and talk about Sly with us?
Bro, he's got like his grandkids in the background running around, or like great grandkids, I guess. I don't know how old. Anyway, so at his suggestion, it was like, hey, Sly and Freddie, why don't you combine your bands? So that's how Sly and the Family Stone officially started.
Nice. They just kind of had like a lot of success, early on.
Pretty early on, yeah. I mean,
when Clive is there, it kind of helps.
When who? Clive is a very important figure. Yes, very very powerful, very influential. A lot of money, a lot of He's we've seen him. We talked about him before. I believe with
Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will continue to run into him.
Yeah.
At this point, he was at CBS Records,
which was interesting because this is like kind of more like the beginning of his career.
Yeah, and I mean, because Whitney Houston, I mean, that was like 20 years basically later.
Yeah.
And he was at Arista and all that. Just to wrap up kind of the beginnings of the band, they put out those 4 albums very close together.
Yeah.
67 to 69, they put out 4 albums, and there were like at least 1 or 2 songs off of every album that I listened to back in college that like stuck with me. Like they had some real talent just for songwriting. Like the song was just it was well made, but it was also like catchy. It's just,
they were considered like a band that could it's like they did it, like they were musicians and they had like a lot of instrumental arrangements that were not of the time. They didn't sound like anything, and then they also were like commercial, So, I mean, I guess that's, me and Josh talk about this. Like, that's what people talk about Steely Dan. Like, they did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Excuse me. But, and they were also extremely influential. You know what I mean? People like Miles Davis were like really into Sly and the Family Stone. Big part of why he came back and started playing again.
And we'll get more into that too.
Skipping, we'll get into this in other episodes, but like Woodstock, huge moment for them.
Yeah.
That's the thing that kind of like put them in like legendary status. So it's like,
that was in 69.
Yeah. When all those other projects were out. So it was kind of like, they were, I want the message to get across that they were special because they were original. Like it wasn't just funk. When people think of Sly and the Family Stone, they think about funk, but it wasn't just funk type music. They were like pop songs, and it wasn't just pop songs, but they were also like R&B songs. You know what I mean? So it was like, and rock. And so and I mean, of course, like they have all these different influences in the band, so you're not gonna have one sound,
And I really just like I really want people to listen to what we talk about like on these episodes, but today for some reason to me it's even like more pressing, like please listen to at least something of theirs, like because you really do hear like all of these influences commingling, and that being said this album is definitely different.
It's definitely a funk album. First impressions, you listen to this
first
album?
Impressions, so
you want to hear mine?
I'll say mine. So first impression for me was
fine.
I just dug it like really hard.
Yeah.
That hasn't been the case for even the ones that I've turned out to like a lot.
Yeah.
This one was first listen for whatever reason. It was right where I was at. I was ready for it.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Even Space Cowboy, where he's like, like I was like, hey man, I'm even digging that.
You were on board.
I don't know if like, Lil Nas X prepared me for it last year or what. I don't know, but something about it, I was like, okay, I'm down. So yeah, first listen all the way through. I would say like it's definitely dark. It's it's not the most accessible listen, but
what
would
how
you
many
say?
words did you pick up first to listen through?
Yeah, I'm already not like a listening to lyrics first time guy, and this time it was like, all right, I don't even know what he's saying other than like, oh, okay, family affair. I heard.
Have
those
you ever
words.
listened to Voodoo? D'Angelo's Voodoo?
A little bit, not all the way through.
Okay, those are really hard lyrics to hear too. I mean, really anything D'Angelo did after Brown Sugar, but huge inspiration for him is Sly, and so like, I can tell because I can't hear anything that any one of them say.
Yeah, yeah.
But okay, so I listened to the album first time through, and I was like, whew, I couldn't get all the way through it. I was just tired.
Really?
I feel like I had ran a marathon after
really? Wow.
30 minutes in. And, I think another reason for this is like I listened to it like right after our podcast that we recorded last week. So I was already tired. And then like, this is not a song you just, put on the background and, do some dishes with. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like you got to have some energy. You got to be ready to give something to it if you're going to do this. So, that was kind of my first experience. It was just tiring. And so I was like, you know what? I'm only gonna listen to this, I need to be ready for this podcast episode. So I want to just keep listening. So every day I was just like, all right, I'm gonna listen to a little bit of it. Let's do a little bit of it. And by the time like Thursday got around, it was like, okay, like I can listen to the whole thing and I get it now. And then when I started listening to like what people talked about, like, some of the backstory behind this album, it made it more like it put it in the right frame for me. I think that's a big thing for me. Like I got to know the frame. Like what is it? Where does this belong? Why does it sound like this?
Yeah.
And then when people would tell me like, hey, this is a dark album, because I wasn't used to dark Sly music. I'm used to like dun dun big trumpets, dun dun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like
more like brighter sounds, maybe.
Brighter, brighter. Even like If You Want Me to Stay is just mellow, smooth, clear groove. Bass is great, So it was difficult for me to listen to first couple of times through, but that's kind of like my first impressions of it. Like, how did it progress for you? Did you keep liking it? Did it like wane for you, or did you find any depth in it?
I definitely kept liking it.
Yeah.
I would say there's maybe like 4 of the really 11, because that 6th track that's called "There's Riot Going On" is it like they give it 4 seconds of silence, but it's essentially, I mean, it's not a full song. I do know why, but you want to say?
I mean, I didn't know if you were saving that. That's why I didn't want to.
No.
There's a Riot Going On is 4 seconds. Then that's the name of the album, of course. But the name of that track is "There's a Riot Going On," and it's 4 seconds. And I was like, wait, what's going on here? Because Spotify messes up stuff sometimes. And so I'm listening to it, or I'm looking, and then I think he told me in a doc. He told me. I think I watched it in some doc or something like that. But he was saying like, I just felt like there shouldn't be any more riots.
Yeah, that was the reason.
Like, I just feel like there shouldn't be any more riots. That's great, bro. Like, I'm gonna put it.
I'm just gonna put it in the middle, and there's gonna be no music, and it's gonna be really not even any. Like, he could have put like 4 minutes of silence in there, But
4 minutes and 32 seconds. John Cage.
There you go. I think it was 33, but close. We'll do that.
Chastise
we'll get to John Cage when I talk about the next album we're doing, but but yeah. So
we take 4 minutes and 32 seconds.
Boy, yeah, those views would go down on the pod if we did John Cage.
Yeah, we got 15 to 12.
Hey, we got 30 something on the last one.
Oh yeah, we coming up, bro.
In the week.
Yeah. Nice.
Anyway, so I definitely continued to like it. There were about 4 that I would say are like playlist worthy for me.
Yeah.
But what is different about, for example,
that feels disrespectful. I know you didn't mean it like that, but let's clear it up.
That is not disrespectful, bro. We'll take like our favorite songs, put them on a playlist off of each album, basically. Oh man. So Elton John, like the Elton John album that we did, Captain Fantastic, like there's like 2 songs that I put on my playlist And like when I think back to the rest of the album, I'm like, I could go without listening to that album again. Like I can stick with, yeah, that's respectful. Like, hey, I listened to it. I want to listen to other Elton John. I want to listen to those 2 songs, again.
Yeah.
That's about it. This album, and the point that I'm basically trying to make is there are still only a few songs that I would put on the playlist, but to me it is definitely one of those like the greater like work, like the whole album is like it's really important to listen to the whole thing. Like, and I'm sure you would agree, like that's important no matter what album you're talking about, but
I definitely feel it, especially for this album, because it in my opinion, like, okay, here's the words for the first song. The first song, what's the first song called again?
Love and
Hate spelled in a weird way. Yeah, love, LUV, and hate, HAIGHT.
I know there's a neighborhood in San Francisco, I think, that's like Hate Asbury or Height Asbury, but I don't know.
Okay, here's the lyrics.
Oh no.
Here's the lyrics. Feel so good inside myself, don't want to move. That's a lot of it. That was like 90%. Wow. Feel so good inside myself, don't want to move. Feel so good inside myself, don't need to move. And then I don't know who's singing this. I think it might be Cynthia. She goes, as I grow up, I'm growing down, and when I'm lost, I know I will be found. Now that's the whole song.
Yeah. Right? That was it. That was the whole thing right there.
Yeah. And then the whole vamp is feel so good, wanna move, feel so good, wanna move. First of all, honestly, like it sounds like a joke, but that first line's kind of fire. Feel so good inside myself, don't wanna move.
Yeah.
I feel so good inside myself.
Yeah, it's like, okay, all right. I think that was maybe Rose, his sister, singing, but
yeah.
I mean, it was definitely either.
I didn't know. I don't know who it was.
Yeah, I'm sure it was either her or Cynthia, because
it's definitely a female voice. So I guess the point of that is like those were like the songs feel incomplete unless you have the whole context of the album. Because there are a lot of songs where they don't have a lot of words. There's some songs that don't have any words. And so there's at least one song that doesn't, right? It's just like a jam. Like they're just playing.
I mean, Space Cowboy is kind of that way. He's kind of he's yodeling, but he's like, yeah,
and like you can't just. I mean, you could, but you can't just put Space Cowboy on the playlist. Like out of context, it's gonna be like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So, I understand what you're saying, and I agree, and I affirm that.
But I would say that if you disagreed, like, I mean, the tough thing with the playlist situation is that playlists are playlists and albums are albums. So playlist it's a different thing. Like, the idea that I stole from you, like you started it.
It's all good, man.
Is like,
ideas.
Let's put a playlist together, like of favorite songs off the, each album that we listen to, and it's like, it can be really easy to then start comparing, like, oh, well, I only have this many off this album, this many off of this album, this, But as far as what we're coming to that from the album, that's the important. Like, we're not just like picking and choosing and then like, forget, like, we're like listening to the whole album each time, like,
exactly.
And that's a big takeaway, I think. But I just want to run down a couple things about like the, like where it was recorded and stuff. It was kind of interesting. Like, I mean, we've talked about how his vocals were like recorded in his bed, and like he's like lying down, like singing.
Like, why was he doing this? I'll just give it to him straight up. Like, he was using a lot of drugs. It was mainly PCP, mainly cocaine.
Cocaine, yep.
And it was just kind of like holding him down. A lot of his friends and family were upset with him because he was like, in their eyes, he was kind of just throwing his career down the toilet along with them, because without him, then they couldn't do their thing. You know what I
mean? Right.
Hence the Larry Graham beef, because I think they specifically had like a beef against each other.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that the fans were upset, like really upset. Like there was like a time where he was at a show and something didn't happen right backstage, and he was just like, "I'm just not going to go on stage." And it was like, wait, what's happening? And I even think, I can't remember for sure, but wasn't there like a riot after one of his shows where people got hurt because he didn't perform?
Yeah, there was a riot. Like, I don't even know if they performed it. I'm sure that happened multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was at Grant Park in Chicago.
I just remember as much as I just said.
Yeah, I think it was in Chicago, I believe, and I think they maybe even didn't even like start
I don't
playing.
Think they performed. Yeah,
and they started rioting, and like, yeah, it was crazy. Like,
and originally that's what I thought the album was like named after.
Yeah. You know, well, and the alternate like album cover was a picture of them, I think, at Grant Park or in Chicago, like at a show.
Oh.
And like it was kind of like referring to that a little bit, but
okay.
And there was like maybe like a police car or something like on the cover too, or I can't remember, but that ended up not being the like official released cover, and they had the flag on it and everything. But yeah, I mean, really fascinating.
Speaking of talking about the cover, title, names, there's a riot going on. Give what's the backstory behind the name?
So, some of you may have heard of the 1971 album "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
And there's no question mark in the title, which I always thought there was, and I looked it up. I was like, like, what's going on? Like, here it is. I don't know, but that came out like 6 months before. It was like earlier in 1971, and then "There's a Riot" came out in November, and it was initially called "Africa Talks to You," I believe.
Right.
This album was
the album. Yeah, that was the album name.
Yeah, and then in response to Marvin Gaye's album, they changed the title of this one to "There's a Riot Going On." So it is kind of this. It is kind of like a question answer effect, like.
And I don't want to put all the reason for the sound being dark and kind of hard to listen to, muddy, the mixes, like a lot of the things were played over. So like Sly would like make this like whatever he wanted, and then he would get keyboard players to come play parts. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So everything is pretty much an overdub besides his voice. You know what I'm saying?
The mix is very dense.
It's very dense. It's it's hard to listen to. I mean, I didn't know that when it was happening, but I had that natural reaction. I was like, all right, I can't make it through this first let's go around.
I definitely know what you mean by that, and I've heard that same like sentiment too. And like, I think for me it was like, it wasn't as hard to listen to, maybe because I didn't like dive super deep into, like, I knew that he had drug problems. I knew he was like in a darker place.
Yeah.
I didn't really like read a whole lot about that. So maybe if I had, it would have changed my perspective more on it. But the thing that carried me through like the album as a whole, and like specifically not like a better or worse thing, but just like easier or harder to listen to, like the grooves just made it so easy for me to listen. Like it is so deep in the pocket. Like the whole thing is like, and it's not even like drum machine is a huge
That's what I was
part
gonna
of
say.
this.
Yeah, there's a lot of drum machines on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was the point I was trying to get to was that like, it's not just the fact that he was in a dark place with his personal life, but also just the nation was kind of in a dark place. This is post Malcolm X being shot and executed. This is post Martin Luther King being shot and executed. This is post Stokely Carmichael. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Vietnam War is happening.
The Vietnam War, like everything is. It's like we had like when in the '60s when they were writing music, there was so much hope that things could be better. You know what I mean? And then when you get in the '70s, it's like. And even like James Baldwin that I've been reading and I've been like kind of like catching up on, he talks about the same type of, just empty feeling. Like, man, did we lose what was happening? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So many young. I mean, you think about Sly, he was an icon. You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't know this, but I'm sure he was connected. Oh, he was. Yeah, we forgot to say that he was he was connected to the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
So actually, my apologies. It wasn't Stokely Carmichael. It was Fred Hampton that was that I was speaking of. He was just like an activist, and not just an activist, but chairman of the Black Panther Party, murdered also in his sleep in his bed next to his wife. And, you know what I mean? So, there was so much happening. That happened in '69. So it's like there was so much happening at the time that it felt like things were going to change. And then all of a sudden your leaders, your friends that you were, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, like Sly was an icon. So I'm sure he was hanging out with other icons.
Yeah, right. I mean?
He was connected to other powerful people. And so when you see your friends die like that for a cause that everybody thought, was going to get better, for things that we thought were going to get better, and then they don't. I mean, I can understand why you just don't want to write happy songs.
Yeah. And there was that was part of the inner turmoil of the whole situation, like going from Stand in '69 to where we got to now in '71 is, right. The Black Panthers, Sly was a part of, and they wanted him to not have any white people in the band anymore.
Yeah.
And then the label, was asking for music and waiting on things, and they decided to put out the Greatest Hits album because they had a couple new singles to throw on there. But yeah, there was just a whole lot inside the band. Larry Graham and his conflicts with the Stone brothers, and then the external conflicts too, like I just said. So and even as internal as just within Sly himself and the darkness that he was experiencing. Yeah. So I mean, it's amazing that really anything got out, like that got produced.
Yeah. And then it's even more amazing that the stuff that came out after that might arguably be more like If You Want Me to Stay, which came out in '73, right? With
on Fresh.
If You Want Me to Stay is like their most popular song, probably. And
one of them. Yeah.
And that happened after all of this. So, it's even, it's more surprised. Like, this sounds like an album that's supposed to be the last album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the end album,
Yeah, for real. And what you said, sorry.
And we've been talking about, like, all the albums that we've done basically have been like, this is their coming out, this is their presenting to the world. This is not that for them.
No.
They already had that.
Yeah.
And this was supposed to be the high point, even more. So
everyone has this type of album because it's like it was so successful, but it was also like what you said about the '60s and like the music that if you look directly at this band, the music they were putting out in the '60s, if you compare it to this album, it's like, is this the same band? And a lot of that is definitely it was centered a lot more around just Sly. He was doing a lot of work on his own. He was producing it by himself. He was using so the drummer Greg Errico, he was a founding member of the band. He left the band in early 1971, so earlier that year. And so then it was like, okay, well, I have this drum machine. It was the Maestro Rhythm King, MRK2, very primitive version of a drum machine, compared to other ones that we talked about, like last week with Prince, but like he would basically lay a foundation of a song with that, and then a lot of times would keep it in. There's several songs on this, on Family Affair, like you hear that drum machine sound, and he was like overdubbing his own drums, or maybe this other drummer Jerry Gibson. This is another Jerry with the G. We talked about this last week too. But anyway, like there's so many things about this album that Sly he was kind of like coming up with himself, or at least starting himself, and that was a little bit different. He was always Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah, he was always a leader, but like we said, like he was definitely about making it diplomatic how he wanted the world to work,
Right.
That's like what he was trying to do in a micro level with his band. And so with that not being, in my head, this is more like, and I could be wrong in saying this is more like a solo album, because he even has like a lot of instrumentalists that aren't in the band,
Yep, Billy Preston.
Yeah, Billy Preston was on this.
The Fifth
and there's
Beatle.
A lot of other people.
Billy Preston's one of those guys. I would say Billy Preston is like, he's like the fifth Beatle to me. There's
everybody says, yeah.
There's other people. There's it's one of those things. Other people. It's like the Queen of Pop thing we were talking about. Like, there's other people that can be considered, but like to me, yeah, Billy Preston is, and so he was on it. Ike Turner was on it. Bobby Womack was on it. So yeah, it was a little bit more of, hey, come over here and do this, rather than like, this is just the band and we're just going to do this within ourselves. So yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, like, I don't really have that much more to talk about with it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like one of those that I feel like is gonna this is gonna sound overly poetic, but
let's get those sun rays back in the shot for this.
Yeah, I feel like this is like a instead of me listening to it, it's gonna listen to me. You know what I mean? That was annoying. I'm sorry, guys. That was annoying. I'm sorry.
No, I like that. It's
like I feel like I'm not all the way ready for not the music, but just like the sentiments. When I'm listening to it, I don't feel like I totally connect with all the sentiments that he has. I mean, I definitely like understand them theoretically,
right?
But it's a lot of heavy stuff, man.
I've never been just like strung out in bed on PCP, for example, there's just a certain level of
have you
experience
ever felt so good inside yourself?
I don't think so. But yeah, so I would say that, I mean, I really don't have a whole lot else too. I mean, for me, I'll just say, for me, it was really cool to listen to this album, because it's not the same amount of time, but it kind of felt like I listened to the first four, I took a break, and then I listened to this one, and that's what happened.
Yeah, you took the same break that Sly did between.
Yeah, I took a massive break.
You took all those D'Angelo breaks.
But it was really cool to me to like to come back to them and to have a little bit of knowledge of their earlier music, and to not just be like, okay, I think I know what they're saying with this. Like the first episode we did, Fleetwood Mac's, like there were like so many albums before that. I mean, I'm starting with rumors,
10, Yeah, it was like 10 albums.
Yeah.
Overall, like, I guess what I wanted to say was that I'm gonna listen to this more. Like, it's one of those where I feel like I need to discover more. Like, there's way more. It's like when you go down. It's like when you're in college, right? Or at least when we are experiencing college, which is like, you find your paths to class and you try not to forget them, and then like, on the weekend, you're like, all right, let me take a stroll. What happens down this road? Like, because ours, we had like so many acres on that school, so it's like, it's like a map. I feel like that's what this is too. Like, if I just focus on listening to the I was gonna say harpsichord.
Good old harpsichord.
What's the word I'm looking for? Clap. If I just listen to the clap, like how far, like where's that gonna take me? If I just listen to the bass, where's that gonna take? If I just listen to words and just read them along while the album's going, where's that'll take me? I feel like I still have some more to go on this one, but I'm excited about it, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, me too.
I actually gonna have to like get out of here. So I'm wondering if we could fork, unless you have like a golden one. Can we?
I have one. I have only one, and it is golden, and you know what it is too. And you told me this. Quick shout out to Larry Graham, who like definitely is the like, I don't know about the highlight, but he's one of the highlights of this album.
He's like smashing it.
Oh, he is so good, man. Like, I was listening to that more than the drums, to be honest. The crazy 3-on-3 fact is, drum roll please, he is the uncle.
Oh yeah.
To Drake. Drake, whose name is Aubrey Graham. Ding ding ding.
Aubrey Graham, man.
Larry Graham, the bass player for Sly and the Family Stone, is Drake's uncle. I remember you told me that, and I remember what? Like, how is that possible?
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be listening. The next album we're going to be doing is.
So the next album is Drake. The next album for this podcast We are hitting episode 10, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all ages. We are hitting episode 10, and we are going to go to Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, 1971, just to kind of round out get the complete picture of 1971. Just the question answer thing, the back and forth between Marvin Gaye and Sly, the comparison between Marvin Gaye and Sly, they're very different.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that they are it's in the same year, and it's so different.
And then also I'm ashamed to say that I've actually never listened to this album all the way through. I probably turned it on, listened to it, fell asleep at night.
Yeah.
when you turn an album on before bed, you're like, I'll listen to all this, then go to sleep. Why do I think that's going to happen?
I think this is the second. It's still only the second album of 10 that I have listened to all the way through, and you have not. The only other one was Still Crazy After All These Years, Paul Simon. But every other single one, neither of us had listened.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Songs of Cuba. Yeah, either both of us had listened to it, or both of us hadn't listened to it, or you had listened to it and I hadn't. So,
wow.
It's kind of interesting. But yeah, What's Going On? Marvin Gaye. We'll go there. I'm still excited. I've heard it. I'm still excited.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm excited because I just know songs that we've played. I played at gigs Inner City Blues, What's Going On, What's Happening, Brother. But I don't really know. I need to listen to it as its whole work.
And this is another rhythm section, groove album. I'm already thinking about the parts in different songs that I'm excited to listen to again. And it's really fun. So, all right, well, man, that was a dark album, but
it was a rough one. It was a hard one to listen to, but
I will say that I am it's continuing to grow on me. But even from the first listen, I was on board. I was on board,
dude. I wasn't, but now I am.
Hey, that's all right. Yeah. Okay, so we'll figure out an outro. I'll have an outro for episode 10. Little episode 10. Know what?
That might just be the outro. We'll figure out an outro, but until then.
You're right. Yeah, that's just what I always say.
That could be good. Yeah.
That's the episode 10 special coming at you live is the new outro for episode 10. But so I mean, we don't really have an outro, but
we don't really have an outro, but here is the outro.
Yeah. So here's the outro. I'm Daniel. I'm in Nashville. He's Aaron. He's in LA. Peace.
New game, charades. Guess who I'm supposed to be? New day.